Anytime you're shortcutting it, you're probably cheating some people. Players play. Tough players win.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Centered Podcast. First time in a long time we have had one of these episodes. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I am your host, Anthony Ianni, a former Michigan State basketball player, motivational speaker, author, and the first Division I college basketball player in Division I history with autism. If you are joining the show for the first time ever, please check us out. We have old episodes up you can find us on Spotify, iTunes, and you can also, if you want to see the live interview, the video interview of today's episode or previous episodes, go follow us on the Center Podcast on YouTube. And again, thank you guys so much for joining us. Like I said, it's been a minute. I've been busy once again, running all over the state of Michigan, traveling all over the country, doing a lot of different media and podcast appearances for my book, Centered: Autism, Basketball, One Athlete's Dream. If you have not gotten your copy yet, you can go get it on Amazon, iupress.com, Target, Walmart website, Barnes & Noble, Schuler's, wherever you guys get your books at. Go check it out because I promise you will not regret it. So, but recently I kind of stumbled upon developing a new friendship, if you will, with somebody. And this is a guy who I've gotten to know him really well just the last couple of months. Now, I knew who he was growing up as a kid because for those of you that know me, I am a huge Detroit sports fan in general. Doesn't matter if it's the Lions, the Tigers, the Red Wings, the Pistons. If they're good or bad, I'm always going to tune in and follow the franchises as much as I can. But there was one individual that I always grew up watching and had so much admiration and so much respect for and always loved watching him play. And that was Darren McCarty, the Detroit bad boy. That's nothing against the Detroit Piston bad boys, but Darren McCarty was the bad boy that kind of set the tone for the Red Wings franchise for many, many years to come. D-Mac comes from Ontario, Canada. He was drafted by the Red Wings in 1992. He is a not one, not two, not three, but a four-time Stanley Cup champion with the Detroit Red Wings, played with some incredible players like Steve Yzerman, Sergei Fedorov, Brandon Shanahan, Dominik Hasek, Brett Hall, Luc Robitaille, Chris Draper, the Russian Five, Igor Larionov, just to name a few. And I've gotten to know D-Mac now for the last 2 months now, and we've gotten to know each other's stories, and there's a lot of mutual respect between the two. So I asked D-Mac, hey, you want to come on the podcast? You know, because number one, I've been meaning to do a podcast episode for a long time, and number two, you know, I wanted to kind of get to know him a little more, know his background growing up, things he has been through, his days with the Red Wings, and obviously I wanted to get the behind-the-scenes scoop of the Claude Lemieux fight that took place on March 26, 1997, that basically set the tone for the Red Wings franchise for many, many years to come. And so, without further ado, let's get right into our conversation with four-time Stanley Cup champion, former Detroit Red Wing bad boy and enforcer, Darren McCarty. So, D-Mac, first of all, man, welcome to the podcast. It's definitely a big honor to have you on, man.
It's a pleasure. Proud of everything that you've accomplished, not only your playing days, but what you're doing now. And anytime we get that, sit down and chop it up, you know, it's always a pleasure.
No, I appreciate that, man. And like I told you before, I can't thank you enough for all the support that you've given me, man. So you have no idea how much it means to me. It truly does mean a lot to me.
It's great to see because I see how busy you are. I see that, you know, how you're positively affecting in a different way that like I am. So it's bringing positive people together, trying to let everybody know that you're not alone out there, no matter what you're going through. And, you know, because the best part is that you realize that, and I realize for different reasons, mine is through the addiction and yours is obviously through the autism, but it's, you know, something's not right. But instead of if you don't say anything about it, then how can it get better? And then you realize that there's people out there that when you truly want to be better, you can be. And we are examples of that. And there's nothing you can see. The best thing is manifest your reality, because you're talking to a couple guys that you can't tell me that I can't do something, because we'll prove you wrong.
Amen, man. I couldn't say it better myself. So let's get right into it, man. So when we last talked a couple of weeks ago, you had told me that, you knew Mike Vorkapich and his brother from back in the day growing up in Ontario, but you were actually originally born in British Columbia. So when did you actually move to Ontario?
6 months old. And yeah, we grew up in Leamington, and, the Vorkapich family, his parents and his sisters were big time athletes. And it just was, like they were like one of the stalwarts. So, they were all great athletes, and obviously, Mike's a great example of turning, maybe wanting to, he was a great ball player and stuff, but not being able to fulfill your athletic dreams, but to stay in it and be an athletic therapist, trainer, and stuff like that. It's a great thing. It's sort of like my son. But it's important when they say it takes community to raise a child. Well, it takes a community to raise Stanley Cup champion too, and I'm grateful. And then so the best part is, say, the Vorkapich, even though it was baseball, not hockey, but still effective part of they're one of those families that for me, I grew up in Leamington. There was like the Wirches and the Vorkapiches, and you knew if you were doing stuff like them or with them, that good things would happen.
So kind of talk about growing up in Leamington for a little bit. So like you've lived in the United States, for a while, obviously, but like growing up in Canada, like what's kind of like the biggest difference between living in Canada and living in the US?
Living in the US is foot on the gas. If it's 70 miles an hour, you're going 75, 80 miles an hour, always in a hurry. It moves a tad slower in Canada. No one's really in an overly hurry to get. It's just, and it's the way even talking and stuff. But, where I grew up in a town called Leamington, that's the melting pot, right, of everything there. So I grew up with all different ethnicities and religions and stuff. So it really taught you that you just see people for who they are. About the fifth or sixth thing you see is, what nationality or race or religion or anything, that doesn't matter. It's about the people. So, the best part too is, growing up, I lived a mile from the rink. So I was able to go and skate when I needed to, whenever I wanted before school and stuff. But I was the only house surrounded by all farms. So I learned the farm life and the plant life and the picking tomatoes at a young age and all that stuff. So it was just, it was more, it was like, it wasn't growing up. It was growing up in a something bigger than a town, but it was country too. So we had the best of both worlds.
So was hockey kind of like that one sport that everybody had to play in your town, or were there like other sports that you were involved in before?
Baseball, hockey and baseball was pretty much the same team, right? You see your hockey team was pretty much your baseball team, except they changed maybe 3-4 people, so we all grew up together that way. And then the way with the age groups, there was majors, minors. So you would play 1 year with one group and then 1 year with the other groups. There's always 2-year age groups. So the 3 years, so I was in 1972. So the 71, 72s and 73s would all, intermingle in the sports world. But, sports was a huge part of our community. And we were all Ontario baseball players. Man, my first love was baseball, but I couldn't hit a curveball when I was 12. I was better at punching people. So I think I did the right thing going to hockey. So, but yeah, just the opportunity and the opportunity, the best thing I could say about growing up in Leamington is that, it was, you were raised by a community in a lot of different ways by just what you're enabled to do. From the little things is, going in and giving your dad the best deal because you're breaking sticks like they're toothpicks, going out of style, and he's buying you this. So you work out, everybody worked out to see, as you're making the climb. And I was always the kid So we lived 3 miles from where the pier is in Leamington. It leads into Lake Erie. So Point Peely's down there. It's like 3 miles from my house. And I used to rollerblade that every day. So it doesn't surprise people a lot. They see me from in town to whatever, rollerblading every day. Is when finally I brought the cup home, in '97 and stuff. It was sort of like, wow, I mean, sort of, yeah, I guess we sort of, if anybody was going to do it, it would be him. So it was great growing up because learned what team was all about. Learned I like I said, all the guys I grew up with were like Italians and Lebanese and Portuguese. So I learned culture and cuisine, so that was always a cool part for me. So and like you said, I've lived over here since 1992. It's just I'm Can American. I used to be Can American, or I used to be American. Now I'm Can American, right? So, and just staying here. I mean, the state of Michigan people won. They won the cannabis rate. Canada thought they were going to lose me. They turned the whole country legal. Michigan said, no, DMAC, you can have your own brand and we'll do it here and we'll help you do it right. So that's why I'm here, Big Tone, because the love of the people of this state, why I'm alive. But I started across the border, and just so people know, give or take 10 minutes for the border, depending on how long you're held there. My house was 40 minutes from Joe Louis Arena. So I grew up watching tons of games.
So kind of growing up, like as a kid, D-Mac, and even like getting into your, before you got drafted, what was the one, like, were you a big like Montreal or Toronto or Ontario fan growing up?
I was a Detroit fan. Everybody else was Montreal and Toronto. The best bet I ever made was when I was 10 years old with my cousin, who's like my brother. He's 6 months younger than I am. And he's a diehard Toronto fan. When we were 10 years old, we bet $100. So that seemed like $1 million, right? And who would win the cup first, Detroit or Toronto? And the fact that Detroit won and I scored the game winner, I made him pay me $200. So don't feel bad for me. Don't feel bad or anything, because we made another bet back in '97 who would win, the Leafs or the Lions first. So I'm still alive in that bet, and he's not scoring the winning goal. So I'm going to be up 100 at least.
Oh man, that's awesome. So
Awesome.
So what does it take? And obviously, basketball and hockey are two completely different sports, obviously, and the training and everything that goes into it is completely different. So what does all the training go into leading up into the NHL draft? So what were some of the things that you had to work on? What were some of the different training regimens that you had to do, like, early on before you got drafted?
Skating. My skating was why I was never going to play. Every level was, oh yeah, he's tough enough, he's got good skills, but he can't skate. But then I would go and I would do whatever it took. I go to power skating. I go to Sweden. I travel, whatever it did. I do whatever it took. They would tell me that my skating wasn't good enough. Well, I was going to show them, right? I got 4 cups to tell you that you don't have to be a great skater to win a cup. Nowadays, the game's changed, but in my sort of time, I was always motivated by when you tell me why I can't do something. Like if you tell me I can't do something, it's because it's legal breaking the law. I can understand that. But if you tell me because it's beyond your fathomability, right? But you aren't me. So don't tell me what to think. You just tell me how to do it. Like if you would have told me, I knew who I was, Anthony, at 8 years old, the hockey player, Darren McCarty. It took me to 48 to realize who the man was. Right. And that's the whole thing. My identity was always through hockey, and the hockey was always what kept me close enough to on either side of the line. But it's always been the skating. And then so I was told, I got the secret, right? I got the secret when I was 16 and moved away from home, played junior B. And the coach Brian Drum, biggest influence, one of them hockey-wise in my life. He said to make it to the end. I said, what's it take to make the NHL? He said, to make the NHL, you got to do something 99.9% better than everybody else. And he said, for you, it's playing physical. He said you work. He says so. You establish yourself first year in every league. All you do is fight and be physical and stuff like this, and then take your play, your points, whatever like this when you can get it, but you work hard on your skills of practice and you show the work ethic and you show that you're in, and then you establish that, then it gets you room. And when you're younger and sort of like the high school, college, junior ages, being 19 and being 16, that's a big age difference. Being right, that's like, that being a senior in college and being a freshman, you're a different person. Right. So that's why by last year in June. So I used that, and I used that year in junior B. Got drafted 4th round to the next year to junior A. Had 27 points that year in probably 25 fights. Right. The next year I had 30 goals and 67 points and probably 20 fights. Then the next year I won the player of the year. I had 55 goals, 72 assists, 127 points, and 181 penalty minutes. I still had about 25 fights. I was either on the ice, and then I got drafted 2nd round to Detroit. Went to the Adirondack, the minors my first year. Had 17 goals, 19 assists, 278 penalty minutes, 45 fights that year. Right? Next year I come up to Detroit. Right, I get in. If you want to pull up what made me the Detroit Red Wings, there's a preseason game in 1993 in Old Chicago Stadium that I fought Cam Russell twice. Fought him in the corner, knocked him down. He was complaining. We went off to center ice, squared off. It was like Rocky. He hit me, cut me on the eye, and I hit him and bambied him. And I just kept hammering away at him. And Scott, that's what I think. Scotty Bowman was like, this kid, I need him on my team. But then I fought. You go to hockeyfights.com. 20-some fights the first few years, but you always established and always getting better and always had to work on the skating. It was always that. So that's like the footwork. You would understand that as a big man, right? You would never, people tell you that your footwork's not good enough. Your footwork's not good enough. What separates the great centers in the world or whatever else? Why was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar such a phenomenal center? Not only he had that sky hook, but he had butterfly feet, right? He had butterfly feet, right? He had smooth feet like a boxer for a big man. Like some of the centers, Shaq too, right? Shaq for a big and mobile man. Wow, can he ballerina, right? Like that, and that's so there's different, and then when you get that secret, like it didn't. If he would have told me that I'd have to eat pails of crap, I wouldn't have liked it. I would have done it if I had to get through a 20-foot cement wall. It might have taken me a long time, and I might have been the oldest rookie in the league, but I would have made it. Right? Like it's all about. I realized early it's priorities. What do you prioritize? But what really do you prioritize? And it's more or less, what are you willing to sacrifice? Right. Because if you're willing to sacrifice everything, then at least you put the work in. Because I'll ask you, because everything that I've gotten out of anything, it's what have I put in to get out. I can look back. Very rarely do I ever get something. There's always something that it's because I've worked at. Maybe it's now something comes across my way, but that's because I didn't know about a relationship 20 years ago. That's why it's consistency and, all that stuff that we talk about. But yeah, skating, to answer your question, that's what DMAC does. I'll always bring it back around. But initially, skating was always my thing. I was always tough enough. I was always fearless. I won player of the year and led the league in goals. The best part about scoring 55 is Kirk Maltby. He only had 50 that year. And I remind him that every time. Yeah.
Some bragging rights over Kirk. I like that.
Oh, it. Hey, I got him trained so much that I go, hey, Kirk Maltby had such a great year. He got 50 goals. And then when he's around, he won't even let me finish. He'll say, yeah, but Matt played a year 55. I'm just like, that's winning. You know how that goes, right?
Oh,
we
yeah,
talked
for
about
sure.
that because you know how that goes when you understand tensions,
Yep.
right? the intentions, right? Like, and here's a prime example. And I know that this is the one thing that I don't know if I ever told you this, but this is so apropos. So everybody knows that your relationship with Draymond and what went down and how that, and it's one of those things where communication, right? And everything else about communication, but you understood, once you understood there were the intentions of it, then you could move on and because you always said that. Well, that's why when I always say, like, Steve Yzerman was so hard on me and picked on me and did it, but it was that love because I knew his intentions and he was right. And that's what the locker room gives you, not only on we focus on wins and losses and stuff, but no, it gives you moving forward. So to be able to know where the intentions are and to take the heat or not the heat or whatever like that, that's the locker room. And that's the stuff that I miss the most, or why that we do the alumni, or why we'll make sure we'll go to a hockey game when we know somebody's in town, maybe from another team or something. It's just to say, hey, you're an idiot. You remember when you did this stupid crap? I remember too. Okay, good to see you. See you another 5 years. Like, that's how goofy it is. But it reminds me, like, it's that kindergarten mentality.
Yep.
Of the freedom of just being yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And loving who you love, because at the end of the day, it's your little kids, right? It's that little kids in you it's the man that's able to process the little kid of, that fun, that serious, all that stuff. So I just thought that I understood, because it took me 3 years to quit sucking my thumb and crying in the corner to realize I got sort of picked on, because he cared, right? Not because he was mean, right? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I think that it became like different guys' teeth would be in the bottom of their throat. Are you kidding me? Like, in the world, that's like the one guy that has apropos, like, what he could say, and he said it. It doesn't, but it's always come from that lot. And I think that, that's a lot what we have in common too, is that we've been around, this Eisman's, the Izzos, the leaders of men. When I look at guys that can lead men, and that just, I'm very fortunate to know Coach Izzo, not to play for him, but at the golf course doing charity stuff, and because we're both old. But it's just, it's really cool to, say that, to hear everybody, because it cares about everybody individually every time they come in. And you really see that. It's like you're his kids now, whether it was their, you know what I'm saying? So
right.
I think that's important.
I've always thought, D-Mac, it's always been interesting too, because, like, the one thing I've always gotten, whether it was growing up watching guys like Michael Jordan, guys like Steve Yzerman, or who else, or even guys like Barry Sanders, like any of the Detroit athletes, and then being able to not only be teammates, but a friend with a guy like Draymond Green. Like, I saw those similarities, of those same leaders and athletes that went up in the Detroit ranks of pro sports. And when you talk about how, Steve Yzerman would get on you guys, and it did whatever it took to get the best out of you, that's kind of how Draymond was too. Like, he would always be like on you every day in practice. He held you accountable. He made sure that you took care of your business, not just on the basketball court in the locker room, but he made sure that you took care of your business in the classroom, because if you weren't going to do that, then you were probably going to hear it from him. And the same goes with Coach Izzo. Like, he always made sure that you were held accountable to the highest authority in so many different ways.
Let me ask you this, because it was always usually Draymond's message was the same one that you were going to get from Coach, right? So it was sort of like, and when you realize that he was doing it to help, to give you the heads up, the leadership to what is expected. And it takes, and it doesn't, I don't think it matters if you have any kind of thing going on. It's communication and realizing, okay, well, this guy, and I always said it, when you realize that you got some guys needed to be pet, some guys needed to be kicked, some guys needed to be kicked then pet, some guys need to be pet then kicked. You know, that's just when you understand, and that's where I look back, and it's a lot easier now because I try to dissect what worked and then look in the Red Wing locker room and see how Stevie, the best part is it's going to work. It's going to happen. It's just when, and it's trying to figure out before it does, because Steve Yzerman's putting it together, because like you said about Draymond, there is that culture. And when you understand that culture, and it's about the we, right? More so as the you, and sometimes, you know what, sometimes, Anthony, you realize the message, the intent was good. The message was crappy, right? The delivery was awful.
Right.
The intent, but that's understanding, right?
Right.
Because
right.
so it's and it's all cool. And I think that's something to be said about everybody, that whether you play athletics in the state or not, there is that sort of culture and sort of the way you present yourself, you know, the way that people here present themselves, sort of the Detroit versus everybody, but it's sort of like, it's accountability. It's got to be accountable.
I do want to ask you this before we get more into your Red Wings career. You know, Steve Yzerman, in my opinion, maybe one of the greatest captains of all time, maybe in NHL history. I mean, there could be other cases you can make as well for others, but when you were as a teammate, did you immediately kind of see that greatness like right away of what made him so special, not just as a captain and as a player, but as a person too? Did you kind of see that right off the bat, or did it take you some time to kind of learn it?
He exudes it, and it's because it's his actions more than his words, you know, because he's the one who's, you know, in the working out. You know, it was always easy because you just follow him around, follow him and Drapes around, and then next thing you know, everybody's happy with, you know, how you show up and what you're doing. I mean, that's no brainer, but no. And it was because the fierceness of the competitor to win, I think, really gets overlooked, but just the sacrifice. He's Steve Yzerman, and I agree. And I agree to the point where people argue like a Mark Messier or whatever, but no, because he did it for so long, and I think that he evolved, right? And to not own, and that's what's made him such a great general manager. But he is the toughest human being that I know. If anybody says who's the toughest human being, Steve, I never complain. Bone on bone. This and that, out with this, always just working. You'd always ask him and you could see it, and you know. Toughest human being that I know, right? Other than Neil Diamond Cutter, who's a deathmatch wrestler, but he's half the size of Stevie. He's nuts. But yeah, you couldn't ask for anything better. And I look at it like, with all my ups and downs and stuff, the greatest thing that God did for me was put me in that organization. And because, you know, even at the toughest of the stormiest seas, you know, not having to be right there, but you know, we're always there. You know what I'm saying? That never gave up on me, or never, you know, and that's from the organization to, you know, Stevie himself, to the individuals, all the guys, and it's just, you know, sometimes in life you're gonna go through life's hard, right? It's just, you're going to go through tougher patches. And I think that it's the people, the most important thing that I could say is it's the people you surround yourself with. And you know what? No truer statement's been said, is that you will be a representative of the 5 people you hang around most with. Think about that. Who are the 5 people you are around most with? And that's true. And you know, it can change and stuff like that, but you can see that. So as long as you surround yourself with pure intentions, right? That's then you can be like my close circle, which I had to learn, right? I had to learn, but my close circle is pure, will tell me exactly where it is, and I know where the intentions come from. right? And that's the most important thing, good and bad, right? Good and bad, just keeping it because they know what's important to you, to me, right? That's because why? Because I tell them, and they tell me what's important to them. And you know what? Instead of mistakes in the past, like people I love the most and take care of the ones that don't matter. I'm extremely guilty of that. But I understand now. So I implore that leading by example is that I take care of the ones around me the most. I make sure they're okay. And I firmly believe, and this as an athlete, routine is huge. Yep. Right? We call it the military spec. That's why grind time with Darren McCarty and Operation Valhalla is the military, because Nick's the Army guy, but it's the transition, right? Where you're not alone, and there's so much. And I was introduced about 4 years ago to a military spec, and that's what we operate off of. And if you see all the stuff I have going on, that's because because of the team that I have, right? And that makes me able to talk to have these conversations, and because I realize that a lot of times, Anthony, it's facilitating relationships, right? The good people should know you can do whatever you want. If I'm not doing it, then don't do it around me, because I want it for the people that are trying to learn and grow. And if you're not ready to be a part of what it is, I'm not pushing anything on anybody. But when you're ready and you got your hand up and want to do the work, come on over, because I've been there. And if it's not something that I've been there, trust me, I know somebody that has been. And you know what? I say that with a badge of honor, because we're survivors. We're warriors, and we lead by example. That's what it is. I wear that as the biggest, that's why I make no bones that I am going to be the Joe Gibbs of cannabis and wrestling in the state of Michigan, right? Because those are my two favorite loves. And because one, you got to understand, gets the other. So if these wrestlers and all the fashions are doing all these crazy things, and they get out of the ring, and then they get CBD and CBN to feel better, sleep better, whatever, then what happens when they get back in the ring? Well, if you're a wrestling fan, they do crazier things, and you as the wrestling fan win.
Yep.
Everybody wins. So that's my long-term goal. And I firmly believe that from my experience of manifesting my own reality, it's not when, it's when. It's between me and Stevie. He wins a cup first, or I'm that guy.
I love that, man. Let's talk about, those days with the Red Wings, man. And, obviously you were known as the enforcer of the franchise during that time. And in my opinion, and I say this to a lot of people I talk to, you are the bad boy of Detroit sports. I mean, that's no disrespect to the bad boys of the Pistons, but you are the bad boy of Detroit, in my opinion. I want to talk about one of the moments that made you that bad boy. And
I'm honored, bro. I'm honored just to be, we can all be the bad boys of Detroit. That's the whole thing. On that point, and I say this to everybody out there, is the greatest part that the grind line, myself, Chris Draper, Kirk Maltby, and Joey Kosher were inducted into the Michigan Sports Hall of Fame as Michigan Treasure. To go in together and as a Michigan Treasure, because that's everybody. We are just the representative, but the grind line is the people of this state that do it every day, whatever it is. We're just, we just had the honor, and I always wanted to be Robin DeProby's Batman. Like, I wanted to be the third gun for Joey and him. I wasn't able to be the third gun, but I was able to ride shotgun for both of those guys, which makes me very dangerous. When I can play and have to just take on the lightweight stuff, right? But I'm sure you're going to ask me about March 26, 97, right?
Oh, absolutely. Because to this day, D-Mac, I don't care if I'm just sitting on my couch watching TV, like, I'll go on YouTube and search some of the most random stuff out there. But one of the things I will watch all the time is when you clocked Claude Lemieux and that fight right there. So we know about Claude Lemieux taking out Chris Draper. So as that game is going on in March 22nd, 97, was that planned? Like, did you plan, like, before the game, did you tell the guys, like, hey, I'm going to go clock Claude Lemieux, like, this is payback? Or did you kind of pick your spot and go, you know what? This is for my boy right here. I'm gonna get payback.
Remember, let me paint the picture, right?
Yep.
Because I got there in 93. And that means that Stevie'd been there 10 years and Scotty just common stuff. And we won the President's Trophy, but then we lost in the first round. Then they had the lockout season. We go to the finals. We're supposed to win the cup, and then we get swept by Jersey. Then we set the league record, 62 wins. And then in game 6, Claude Lemieux hits Chris Draper from behind. And this is where I tell you, guys, in life and sports, you can't lose respect for a fellow human being. And it's a fact that Claude Lemieux did not apologize to Chris Draper, said you would never hurt him, and he just made him so much money. That happened in May 96. March 26 is 10 months later. Now, the imperative part is after you win 62 games to set a league record and lose to a team, and then don't beat them in the first 3 out of the 4 games that you play that year, well, that's called a rivalry, and that's called embracing the suck, and the only way out is through. Sort of like everybody has a high school rival or a team they played growing up. Now, leading up to March 26, okay, the only thing that was ever said, ever, between anybody was the day I got Chris Draper out of the hospital 2 days after. He got his jaw, he got a titanium plate in his face, and his jaw was wired shut in 4 places because he broke his jaw and crushed his orbital. I said one thing and I asked him the other, and I looked at him and I said, don't worry, I'll take care of it. Then I asked him, where do you want to eat? But that was a loaded question. And because it was Andiamo Noki, and it takes a guy with his jaw wired shut and a titanium plate 4 hours to eat Noki, a plate of Noki. I'm not mad though, bro. I was still drinking then, so I was out of the boat. We were in Grosse Pointe, so don't worry about me. But the whole thing is we had to win the game. Right? We had to win the game because, again, it's building up. We get to the top of the mountain. We fall down. Are we ever going to be there? All the naysayers are, they'll never get over the hump. Boo the Russians, whatever like this. So I remember, I'm waiting for an opportunity, right? And you try not to cost the game, but the game had to start out really well. But it starts, and Igor Larionov, our elder statesman, the professor, all 5'4", 140 pounds of him soaking wet, decides he's at up Peter Forsberg and he swats him. And I see it's like it reminded me of like puppies on Christmas. Oh, they're so cute. But then I remember Lemieux was on the ice. So I went to Shark Week, and then Adam Foote grabbed me, the big nose defenseman, ugly, grabbed me like this, and he's really strong. And I tried to get loose, but then Shanny, the Flying Irishman, comes in, knocks me loose. I fade the linesman, and this is where I tell you, difference between a sucker punch, which is from behind, don't do it, and a cold cocks when you look the guy in the eyes that you've been seeing every night for 10 months, right? And you pull your arm back, and every man, woman, and child, and in this universe and beyond, no matter what, Wingwheel Nation was in that fist, and bam, hit him with the cold cock of all cold cocks. He said he didn't turtle. Claude Lemieux said that's the hardest thing I've been hit. And I was like, thank God I can't hit you any harder. Then I don't know what's going on with the goalies. Right? Because I'm trying to put my hand through his skull and rip his heart through his nose. And I know that's not anatomically possible, but I was trying. And I saw Chris Draper on the boards, and it was like a beam of sunlight. And I smashed Claude Lemieux's face against the boards and tried to knee him, and got 4 minutes for roughing, 10 minutes conduct. Stayed in the game. We tied it up after down 5-3 in the third, and tic-tac-toe. DMAC gets the winner. And at that moment right there, in Wingwheel Nation everywhere, proverbial, it's going to be all right. Don't know what it means. It's going to be all right. Well, 4 cups later, right? And I tell everybody why it's imperative, because I've only had that feeling twice. That was the first time. The second time was I was at the press conference when Steve Eisman was introduced as vice president, general manager. Had the same feeling. It's going to be all right. Don't know what it means. It's going to be all right. We're just waiting. I think it's 4 or 5 years, but could be right, could be wrong. But it's just a matter of time. He will not be denied.
I love that, man. And I think the one thing I loved about, that fight in general was that really kind of showed me right there just how tight knit you guys were, not just as a team, but as an organization too. And I was
Team
like,
tough. See, this too, right? To be a champion, there's one thing about the skill and whatever, but there's this mentality of living and dying, so to speak, for the guy beside you, right? And I think they covered it really well looking back in hindsight, retrospect. But the Russian dinner we had and the Russian 5, where we all went out and they sort of, Stevie said, Russians brought us into their world, and that really tightened everything up. And I think personally, on an individual level, for all of us, with each other a little bit more, that it was one of those things that we're sick and tired of being sick and tired, and we're the group and we believe in each other enough, and we're going to get this done. And this, that helped us in the future too, when we had to face adversity going into Vancouver down 0-2. That was sort of like Stevie's speech. It was like, come on, guys. I mean, you look around and go, you see, we stunk the joint out. We haven't played well. Let's go out and play our game. And then if we lose, we lose. Right. And then, but at least don't go out like this.
right.
And then he had a couple choice words, probably for me. Probably my fault again. But that's the way.
Let's talk about those 4 cups, man. Your first Stanley Cup, you had another one of my favorite Darren McCarty moments, the clinching goal where you scored it on an inside-out move around 2 people, which I think to this day is one of the best, goals I still have seen in my lifetime to this day. Because like you said, if you had to pick one thing that you had to work on the most, it was your skating, early on in your career. And then here you go, you do an in and out move on 2 guys and you clinch, a goal for the Stanley Cup. So do you think, and obviously this may be one of those questions where it's like, oh yeah, like obviously your first championship is obviously the best, but you had 4 of them. Was the 97 Cup the best one?
I answer it this way. How many kids? You have one son right now?
I got 2 kids, 2 sons.
Now, hey, who's your favorite? You say, dude, my love for my sons, but it's different because it's a different story and they're different. So your rings are like your kids, right? You love them all the same, but for a different storyline. And a lot has to do is you're different. You're older. You're more experienced. You've had one before. Or what to, so you know how to enjoy it. So, me, D-Mac, the crazy, the wrestling character, the guy that everybody sees, when I'm out and about, and that guy, obviously when I score the goal, I mean, it's a clinching goal, man. Come on, man. Dingle dangle, beat one guy one-on-one. It's all timing. Come on, man. I just pull it out, man. That's just like, you hit 1-3 in your career. It's for knocking down the nets, it's for the national championship. I mean, it's like, you got to do it when the lights are on, right? That's the one thing about me is that, at the end of the day, no matter everything that I do, I'm an entertainer. That's what I am. The lights come on and I get excited. Put more people in the stands, you put more people in front of me, I get excited. I want to entertain them all. You know what I'm saying? The moment's never too large. And I thrive on that. I think that us as a team thrive on that. The grind line, that's what the grind line's all about. Yeah. Right. And it's about just like people out there. When the going gets tough, who do you go to? Now embrace the suck. It doesn't matter. Right. And then, like when I talk about 97, 98, and they all got great storylines like kids because of Vladdy. And that was, but 97, 98 was sort of together because we didn't get to enjoy it. And then everything we all went through, but the morning of Vladdy, we all went through it, fans, everybody. So that was another, I have a lot of very spiritual cosmic moments, right? Cosmic. So if you don't think that, whatever else, whatever you believe in, whatever, but the cosmic something greater, these are cosmic things that happen, moments to have that belief, to be able to accomplish that, and then, the 0-2, not doing it the easy way, but having the Hall of Fame team and, winning Robitaille and Hasek their first cup and stuff. And then, in 08, in '08, this is what I was always told. And one of the rules, or one of the things that stuck with me is never say what if. And I just knew I had something left. And these are my guys with Drapes and Maltz, and Ozzy was back, and Nick and Homer were still there, and Z and Pav. And I knew them because I played with both of them early in their career. And it just, I knew they needed me in the dressing room, but to be able to come back and play in the IHL in Flint, and then come back, like cosmic moments. My first game in Grand Rapids, I get a hat trick and 4-point night, right? So I, eventually proved it, got on the roster for the playoffs. And because of injuries, I played 17 of the 22 playoff games, won the 4th cup and actually scored the playoffs. So it was, cool to be a part of it with the guys, and be a part of it again. Because it just felt like, it was almost like I was the missing piece, right? And I always told Kenny Holland, you hadn't won a cup since 1955 without me in the lineup. You better stick me back in, bro. So, I mean, I just call it like I see it. And then now I'm just grateful to be able to be still here, to be able to try to bring some, I don't know, just some perspective, right? Some perspective from living it. And I'm not, like you said, you mentioned, you go back to the beginning when you mentioned Bork. He could probably remember a lot more stories and stuff like that growing up than I do. That's just because he's taken a lot better care of himself than I have over the years. But but he is older. He's a year older than I am.
So I love how you mention, or how you talk about how, every single cup has a different story. And it's kind of like, the Big Ten championship teams that I was a part of, in 2010, that team went through a lot of ups and downs. Whereas 2012, my senior year, that was a team where people gave us absolutely no chance to even have a shot at winning the Big Ten championship. And I remember telling one of our media folks, Joe Rexroad, who's now in Tennessee, in Nashville, he asked me, he said, what's the expectations for this team this year? And I was like, well, I said, the toughest team is going to win the Big Ten championship this year, and that's going to be us. And he just kind of looked at me like, all right, that's very optimistic. I like it. But then fast forward to March, where, we've already clinched a share. And I looked at him, I said, hey, how about that prediction? And, so I still tell folks, like, that year, my senior, will always be my favorite. But I love how you talked about how every single cup that you won had a different story, had a different meaning behind it. And I think that's what makes the Red Wings franchise so special, is that you have all these different teams and different players that have been a part of these special teams, but there's always been a special story or a special meaning behind those teams that you were on.
It adds to it. And it's also too, is that it doesn't make it less, but somebody's going to bring up something from the 2010 year and you're going to go, oh man, that was because it's all part of the journey. Right. And the fact that because you didn't know in 2010 that in 2012, you knew that the toughest team, what's going to put you over that? The toughest team's going to win. You didn't know what that meant. You didn't know what it meant to play basketball in the Big Ten. So you got in there and, knew it was more old school basketball, under the rim, banging around. Who wants it more? You know what I'm saying? Like, just the way that it is. And so that would be my answer to 97, because I scored the goal, because you made the call, right?
I got a couple more questions here, and then we'll get into our my favorite part of the show, which is the rapid fire questions. I do want to ask you about the Hall of Fame team, the 2002 Stanley Cup team. In my opinion, to this day, in all of sports, it may be one of the greatest teams that was ever formed, because you had yourself, you had, Stevie Y, you had Fedorov, you had Shanahan, and then you added Brett Hall, Robitaille, Hasek. Like when those three came on board, like, did you guys kind of look at each other? Because once those three guys came on board, the expectations for you guys obviously were kind of Stanley Cup or bust, because when you have one of the greatest goalies of all time, and then one of the best forwards and defensemen of all time coming onto your team, does that was there extra pressure to those expectations for you guys? Because now it's like, okay, if we don't win the cup, like, this is a bust. Or were you guys just like, you know what, we've been here before, we know what to do?
It was more like, and looking at it in hindsight, it was more like Scotty retired after. It was his last hurrah, the last
Right.
sort of thing. They're gonna put the guns in, and everybody was sort of more getting like Stevie wasn't healthy, so his sort of end shot, and it was putting the eggs in the basket. We were all in. Let's do it again. And I think the fact that we climbed the mountain and failed, it was a challenge that we accepted. We didn't feel pressure.
Right.
Because once we got going, or when we, got out on the ice and figured the chemistry, and we had great chemistry that year, in the locker room, on the road, dinners, all that stuff, because it had the veteran team, and it was more so we liked to smoke. We wanted to smoke. It was something that and for all of us that had won and had won a couple times already, it was time to win again, right? So we needed that one. That made it 3 and 6. So because we faltered a little bit before that.
Yeah. And you talked about how some of the guys on that team had already won, but as you mentioned, Hasek and Robitaille, were two of the guys that had never won a cup before. So did you kind of had to show those guys like, hey, this is what it took for us to win these cups in 97, 98. And if you do this the Red Wings way, we're going to get you that first cup. Like, was there anything you had to say to those guys, or were they pretty much already locked in once they got there?
Does that, right? And then Hasek, it's easy with the goalie, is that just keep the puck out of the net, right? And stay in your net, Dom, because you can't handle the puck. But that was the hardest thing, is watching him roam. But with Robitaille, you saw, he played fourth line with Larry Onoff and Holmstrom. He was willing to do whatever it took to win. And, that was Scotty. The system plays itself, right?
Yeah.
And after a while, playing for Coach Izzo, once you get in the vibe of the system, well, you know what, then he can add little meat and potatoes to it. But the system is the system.
Absolutely. Last question I want to ask you is, you kind of preached on it a little bit earlier about some addictions you had in the past. So who was kind of that one person that you turned to, or that one person that came to you to kind of like, kind of point you in that right direction of, hey, this is where you're heading, this is where we want you to go, and we're willing to do anything to help you out? Like, was there kind of like some of those moments or some of those individuals?
The best answer for that is between all of them, trying at different points when it mattered, but the closest one, confidant or whatever that I do is obviously Drapes, the best friend, stuff like this, but just sort of, and just sort of like guidance, or, things like that, or confide in to him at different times. So, but it was always sort of the awareness from above, because the best part is and I feel this from the top, from Mr. and Mrs. Illich all the way through the organization. It was always just about, we want Darren to be, to be okay. You know what I mean? The person. It wasn't the piece of, the property stuff like that. It was more like the person, and through different times. And I'm prime example, man, is that you don't know when it's your time to get it, and you got to keep trying. And for people out there, it's that keep asking you, and you want to. There's different things. So I'm coming up on 6 years sobriety.
Fantastic.
And I just met. It was really cool because I was at a wrestling event in Taylor at one of the VAs, and just talking to some of the vets that had some over 20 years sobriety, but just how, the CBDs and the cannabis has been part of the, working program, but it has a garden. I just thought that was awesome, because the education's getting there, and people are getting to make their choice. So, the support from afar, but, Drapes would be the answer to your question.
I love that, man. I love that. I was just kidding. This is actually my last question. The way the Red Wings are looking right now, and the way they've been playing to start off the season, you can tell there's that scrappiness again. You could tell there's that toughness that's been, in my opinion, kind of been missing from the organization before Stevie Y came over, took over as GM. Where do you see the Red Wings as far as like the future goes? And like, do you think Stevie Y is ahead of his plan right now, or do you think there's still a couple more years to go? What's kind of your take on the future for the Red Wings?
His plan is, other than it's the hashtag wiser plan. But I think that the fact is that what you said is you see a team play for each other, that team toughness, the ebbs and flows, right? They're too inconsistent right now, but they're learning, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they compete. So that's, and you got, two of the brightest young stars in the league, lighting it up, and Raymond and Sider, and this is Sider, and you have a possibility of watching right now, the future, which and since Pav and Z came along, where you have a couple guys, a tandem, and then you got other guys trying to prove. I mean, you look at how valuable Tyler Bertuzzi is in that lineup, and he is the stir stick, to the mess. So the one thing is they're exciting to watch.
Absolutely.
They're exciting to watch. They can put the puck in the net now. Now they got to tighten up defensively, PK. But they're a team that I think can be in the mix for the playoffs. It all depends on, they can't go on 2 and 3 game losing streaks the way that the league's set up with the points. So those games that they're gonna lose, they got to find a way to get a point out of.
And you could just kind of tell too, like the way the vibe is at Little Caesars Arena now, the way the fans are back into it, man. Like you could just tell, like they realize that something special is building.
They came out full force opening night, and that's what the exciting part of seeing what can be when that team on the ice for the playoffs and stuff like that. It's going to be electrifying and exciting.
No, I can't wait, man. It should be an exciting few months here. All right, man. You ready to have some fun here?
You bet.
All right.
Don't make it too hard.
I won't, man. So we have 10 rapid fire questions here for you, D-Mac. Question number 1, I like to call it the master's question because it is like a tradition unlike any other. So question number 1, strawberry or grape jelly?
Strawberry.
All right. Question number 2, your favorite game you've played in as a Red Wing? I love that. Question 3, your favorite goal you've scored in your NHL career?
97.
I figured. All right. Now, wrestling question for you here, since we're both big wrestling guys. A WWE or AEW wrestler you would like to meet?
AEW.
I love that, man. I love that. If I had to pick, man. What's that?
The bastard Pac. I want him to yell at me in British. I'll call him Neville, and he will say, "My name is Neville. I will give you a rug out. Give me a 450." That would be so cool.
I think.
What would yours be?
I think for me it'd be Darby Allin because he has the, because obviously my hashtag has always been relentless, the relentless tour, and Darby's got like relentless tattooed on the back of his neck. Like he's just a daredevil, man. I love that guy.
Dude, I do too. And if I picked WWE, I'd say Drew McIntyre.
Yeah,
that's my guy.
McIntyre is a good one too. I would have to go with Randy Orton because I've been watching Randy. I've been watching him since high school. And
that's a good one too, baby. The Viper.
Yeah. Oh yeah, like he is. Like I still remember watching him early on when he was with Evolution back in the day, and like I love watching him, man. Like I think he's one of the greatest of all time, in my opinion. All right, question number 5. Best motivational speaker not named Anthony Ianni.
I'm not I'm gonna misquote it, but I'm not my father's issue or chat, or I'm not a product of Tony Robbins. Gave the most powerful one that I've ever done, and it helped because as I have older kids and stuff like this, some of the things that have gone wrong or whatever in the past, but to be able to help speak through it, that helped us a lot. So I'm going to give him the props in that. I'm going to say there's 2 motivational things. I think Gary Vaynerchuk is phenomenal. Just because he's so relatable and he does it layman's wise. But if you have a chance on Facebook, and I repost this if you follow me, if you have my hacker DMAC OSB account, cunning, baffling, powerful.
I love that. I love that.
Baffling and powerful. It's those positive messages. And my sort of thing is I'll fire through and get in that, and you'll see me like I'll rip like 8 of them in a row. And there's the perfect, like if I go through it. But you know what is so amazing, Anthony, and you'll appreciate this. Something and you embrace it, take it in, but you might have somebody in mind, right? Yeah. And they get it and they respond and go, oh, that's, I really felt this one, or that reminded me a lot, or, I look at this one, or, you know what I'm saying? Or, I had this one. And it's just either it's the human connection, right? That's what we're trying to share. We're not, for all of us, that's, it's okay. It's okay not to be okay, and it's okay to be different.
Absolutely. So you mentioned Tony Robbins. Like, Tony Robbins is one of the guys that I actually studied starting out my motivational speaking career. So he was one of the guys that I would kind of watch, how he delivered his message. And then Eric Thomas, the hip hop preacher, was another one I watched. This next one, some people may find it weird or funny, but I always watch The Rock. And watching his promos, how he delivered a promo and just kind of how he would feed off a live, the energy from live crowds. So that's why, and of course my wife would laugh at me about it, why I'm such a big Dwayne Johnson fan, because number one, he's very inspirational. He's very good at what he does as an actor, but just kind of watching his delivery on those promos, I was like, man, if I can bring that that same intensity and energy as The Rock did delivering promos, I think I'm going to be okay at what I do at my job.
You're taking pieces of what you like, and it's not it's you're making your own stuff. I realize that I do this slapstick comedy tour, right? And I realized I've been doing it for over a couple of years, and that being on stage by myself, like I told you, the audience, I mean, that's first time I was out there, I was like, oh man, now I know what the band was for. Maybe come from front of a fan, but now I don't got to sing and I can just talk. No, now you're all in trouble. So, you know what I'm saying? It's just finding what you enjoy and who you like, because who gets that message across?
Right.
And people hear differently, and that's okay. And you understand that people learn differently, and that's okay. And it's trying to, where you speak universal language, right? That's what you're trying to speak. It's for everybody.
Exactly. I love that, man. Question number 6, your favorite NHL arena you've played in?
By far, home base, man. Even the sticky floors and the smells and, the cold pizza. I mean, you can't replace it.
No, the Joe was. I always tell people there was not a bad seat in that arena, man. You can buy a seat anywhere. Upper deck didn't matter. It was still a great seat. It was.
That place, the energy. It was just electric.
Oh yeah. It was. Man, I miss it, man. I know you definitely miss the Joe too. I know you do for sure. Question number 7: if you could be a superhero, who would it be and why?
His sense of humor.
I love that.
Because that would probably be most fitting for me, because he's a bit of a smart aleck. Drape's a Superman, that's for sure. He's always got to be the fastest and the strongest and all that, because he's the smallest. You know how those guys are.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I'm gonna say Deadpool.
All right, I like that. Question number 8: Subway or Jimmy John's?
Or what is my go-to? Gosh darn it! See, I give Jimmy John's a nod.
Okay.
Fast, and I don't got to go in there.
Good. That's a very good point. Good point, my guy.
If you're gonna get your sandwich made by a Subway artiste, right? Which you're gonna go if you're in the mall or if you're somewhere, right, where it's convenient to walk by, or right, because if you want, you get the options,
Right.
But you want to see, a little bit more, putting it on. You don't want somebody else making that big stuff. When you get a Jimmy John's, it's consistent. The bread's consistent.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like
Hey,
that.
listen, we're talking about food, man. Especially, I know my way around, especially convenient food.
There you go. Question number 9. I think you'll like this one. Frozen pond hockey or street hockey?
Street hockey, just because I know I grew up in the cold, but it's fun out when it's nice and stuff, but more times than not, the street hockey game. And that's what we grew up. We grew up in the NHL, the Nazarene Hockey League. We'd wait till church got out at 1 o'clock at St. Mike's Church, and we'd have like 6 games. That's where you learn how to fight. You're like 10, 12 years old, fighting 16, 18-year-olds. Outside we had all teams by different, we were the Munja Cakes, and then you had the Italians, and, it was cool. So I'm going to go back to the roots.
I love that. Last question number 10. Who do you admire the most?
Girl, because she not only gave me not the courage, but gave me the belief that I deserve to love myself enough to go on this journey to get to where I am almost 6 years later to now. I just admire her because she's the most loyal person that I know, and loyalty is number one with me. So now, chapter 17 in my book, My Last Fight, True Story of a Hockey Rock Star, How I Met My Wife. There you go. Still to this day.
I love that, man. All right, D-Mac, last thing I'm going to have you do here. I do this with all my guests. Please give my guests your positive message for the week.
Cardi, 4-time Stanley Cup champion, Detroit Red Wings, here with my Anthony Ianni positive message of the week. And it's A, you're never alone. B, as long as you don't give up, it doesn't matter how long you stay down, you got to get your butt back up. And remember to get educated, get medicated, and it's not the what, it's the who. Darren McCarty 4 on Twitter, and you can see me every weekday. Woodward Sports Network, 11 to 1, joint bell meal roll. Bam.
Dropping the mic on the Center Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, he is the man, the myth, the legend, the Detroit bad boy, 4-time Stanley Cup champion, Darren McCarty. D-Mac, thank you so much, man, for coming on the show. Greatly appreciate it, my friend.
For you, brother. Proud of you. And, another step in this great. I can't wait when you're Tony Robbins and I'll be waving from down below. And I know that guy.
You're going to be sitting front row, man. You're going to be sitting front row.
And you'll be like, you candy ass, Rudy Poo, get your ass out of here. You'll be throwing something out there. It doesn't matter. You'll be dropping all these bombs on me. Right? There's Detroit bad boy. It doesn't matter. I look forward to it, Anthony. Thanks, bud. Hey, love the book. I'm like 4 chapters in.
Thanks, D-Mac. I appreciate that, brother.
No, it is. And dude, I commend you because and along your journey, but dude, you see how the courage, and you're like me, but you have to learn how to take the compliment into doing, because it's sort of what your life's work is. Everything you've been through, all the other stuff is, and you pass it along, and I think you do a great job. And continued success in all your travels. Safe travels, bro.
I will, man. Let's stay in touch, all right?
You got it.
Thanks, D-Mac.
You got it. Later, bud.
See ya. I cannot thank Darren McCarty enough for coming on to the show today. It was just a blast, just kind of talking about the great memories that he brought up with the Red Wings and talking about his career and some of the incredible things that he did in his career and that he's doing today, and just how he overcame addiction, 6 years sober. Super proud of him, super proud to know of him. and proud to call him a friend as well. So it's been a minute since I've done a positive message for the week. And, you know, I thought about, okay, how am I going to end this episode? What am I going to say? How am I going to approach this? And then just kind of talking to DMAC a little bit about, you know, his obstacles, his challenges, his addictions, everything he was growing up with. He made a very valid point when he talked about his positive message for the week. And I really kind of want to hit home on that as well. So DMAC kind of talked about a little bit about how you're not alone, that there's always somebody out there that you can talk to and that you can listen to. And we're still kind of a point in society where we go through tough times. We go through so much mentally, physically. We just don't know who to turn to. And sometimes there are some folks out there that feel like they need to go through things alone in life and that they are by themselves. And I'm going to piggyback off what DMAC said. You're not alone. If you're going through tough times, mentally and physically, it's okay to take a step back and take time for yourself. And I think that sometimes in life we forget that because we do so much, we try to do so much, we try to push ourselves to the limits to where we forget that we need to have a little break in life sometimes. And I've done that before in the past where I've kind of pushed myself to the limit, and then I kind of need to step back and just, you know, be myself for a little bit. Whether that's spending more time with my wife, my kids, whether that's more time with my friends, you know, just chatting with people, like whatever the case may be. Because it's also a way for me to kind of relieve that stress and kind of get to that happy place. Basketball was always that happy place for me. I may not have basketball as much as I do now, but I still have my different ways of coping with things and dealing with things. And I'm always going to talk to people about things I go through. And I'm going to highly encourage everybody listening to this to continue to do that. Continue to talk to everybody. Continue to talk to the people that you love, that care about you, that support you. And continue to talk to your friends as much as you can, because just having those conversations and people knowing and people letting you know that you're not alone, it's going to take you a long way away in life. And please always remember, take time for yourself. Enjoy life to the fullest. And just know it's okay not to be okay. But always know you're not alone. Cannot thank you guys enough again so much. Again, if you want to check out more episodes of the Center Podcast, go to iTunes and Spotify. You want to see today's interview with Darren McCarty, go subscribe to the YouTube channel, which is the Center Podcast. And again, if you want to check out my book, Centered, Autism, Basketball, and One Athlete's Dreams, please go to Amazon.com, IU Press, Barnes & Noble, Schuler's, wherever you get your books. Thank you guys so much for your support. Peace and love, everybody.
Anytime you're shortcutting it, you're probably cheating some people. Players play. Tough players win.